right. Ben, you ready for Steam Zone?
Constant state of readiness, Noah. You can't leave your house in the morning without being ready.
Here it is. I think that's a Marine thing, or maybe it's a Ben Jacobson thing. Either way, we're going in. So let's start it off with a good one. It's been a busy week. It feels like, I don't know if it's been a week or two. I don't remember the last time we were steaming things, but this week a lot went on. I want to start with a little nostalgia, a little look back, because one of the things I was shocked to see this week. Do you know that it's been 10 years since the Ghost Fleet? Peter Singer, August Cole, the famous, supposedly a work of fiction, science fiction, predictive fiction, what have you, about what the early stages of a U.S. versus China conflict could look like. The War in the Rocks sat down with Peter and August to talk about the book 10 years on. What do you think they said? You think the picture has gotten a little bit rosier, a little bit bleaker? What would you guess in the last 10 years?
I'm going to guess things are going down.
Yeah, I think the whole crazy thing is they talk about when they started, when they wrote the book, they started working on it in 2012. There was this idea that maybe we would co-opt China into the rules-based international order, if you remember those days, right? You know, we'd accommodate their rise, kind of the Obama era policies. I think it's safe to say things have gotten actually surprisingly worse. Not the rosiest picture in the world. I think the book kind of paints a picture where the U.S. runs out of a lot of material very early on and takes time to kind of regroup and to build back. I'll say, man, like this one seems like it maybe stands the test of time, which maybe just further emphasizes that without a big crisis, we're kind of heavy-footed here in these United States of America, despite all of our drum banging about, you know, reindustrialization and defense tech. It doesn't seem like we've really changed the calculus there.
China's attacking me with the sneeze here. Yeah, I think there are probably some moves we made that are in the right direction. It's like an exponential problem, right? Like being a step behind, and every second you're a step behind, and they have compounding gains means they're going to get faster, right? It's not like if you're a day behind and your enemy has AI perfectly enabled and everything, and then the next day you're not 1 day behind anymore. You're now 3 days behind because they had exponential growth using the best technology and having the best systems in place. So every moment that we delay doing the right things, having the right detailed approach to solving technological problems is a moment we risk having issues.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk about it. I thought there was a really interesting argument this week about, hey, you know, we're focused on this AI arms race right now, so to speak, or we can't let China win the AI competition. Then Andreessen Horowitz came out with a piece, you can't let China win the robots competition. It's like, you know, somebody made the point that actually some of this investment might be crowding out the others. So if you're going all in on AI, and the top talent in the country is going to be focused on AI, the top investment, you know, top levels of investment, the top firms are really focused on scouting the big AI companies. There's potentially, you know, downside to that for other domains. So if you want to also compete in robotics, you know, you either need dedicated pools of talent and capital focused on those things. I don't think it's zero sum. I don't think, you know, we're not in that kind of scarcity environment. However, I do think the oxygen gets sucked up when the hot thing is everybody wants to be the AI company. It's hard to do multiple big bets, big R&D changes all at the same time. So yeah, I don't think it'll be surprising to many that the picture of US vis-a-vis China, not super rosy, and it hasn't gotten much better. It's the famous political question, are we on the right track or wrong direction? It's what pollsters think is the major thing to determine what's going to happen in an election. Right track or wrong direction in conflict versus China. It's hard to argue we're on the right track.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of work, and there are areas where we have an advantage, whether it's in our distributed nature, whether it's in that we have tons of entrepreneurs with different ideas throwing stuff against the wall versus a top-down bureaucracy that we're fighting in China. But they also have a unity of effort in some ways that we don't. So, you know, truly it's a battle of ideology. I think, obviously, I'm biased. I think we have the better one. But we need to actually lean into our strengths, right? We're not going to out-bureaucratize them. And there was a great quote, which, you know, I don't want to over-rotate on, but it's either from like Soviet Union doctrine or German doctrine. And it's like the reason the Americans have the advantage is because we don't know their strategy. And the reason we don't know their strategy is because they don't know their strategy. And there's something to be said for that, right? Which is We lean into that, right? And it's that you've got 500 different drone companies working on the problem. Well, then there's no real clear strategy, but then we have 500 different ideas. Now, when you make sure we pick winners and we have a solution that gets fielded and tested, whether it's drones or any other issue, the specific AI related cyber cool issues that we talked about in Ghost Fleet. But there is something you said, we need to lean into what makes us better. And I don't know that we are completely there yet.
I think it was the great American philosopher Mao Zedong who once said, "Let 1,000 flowers bloom," or "Let 2,000 drone companies flourish." Maybe that was the saying. All right, we know that we're in the fight, and the fight continues.
So we've got the pacing threat in China, right, Noah? Well, you'd be surprised to know we've got people trying to hold us back. In New York City itself, in my hometown, in your hometown, we've got issues here.
No
You think
way.
it's just the enemy abroad? No. We have city council members in New York City that want to stop us from doing the simplest, simple stuff. So Josh Barrow, Twitter personality, is reporting on a New York City council vote that will make appliances more expensive, right? Because they're going to require a master plumber to handle the installation of any gas appliances, right? So when we talk about New Yorkers are facing an affordability crisis, it is part of it is layering on all of these regulations, right? Now, if you talk to anybody and say, is it good to have expert people install gas? Like, gas is scary, right? Like, things can go boom. Turns out it's not, right? We can't use these fear tactics to just say, oh, this is hard. Any plumber, we don't need a master plumber, can do the gas stove installation. It's wildly safe, right? And you can't just appeal to these fears to stop progress and to make things more expensive for the average day New Yorker. So Twitter went nuts here. We had Yimby Land, right, talking about the lever who was going after Abundance Pro Barrow, right? They're saying that, oh no, actually a New York City apartment building exploded. Turned out because of a gas explosion. Turned out that wasn't true, right? Fake news. They got community noted and wound up deleting their tweet because this is what the anti-abundance people rely on, right? Because they don't want to build. So they have to make up stories, make up fake safety issues, right? Turned out, first of all, the building that exploded was because of a boiler, not because of a gas stove installation. And two, they already required a master plumber. So it was a master plumber that fucked up. So like and the Twitter stuff is fantastic here, right? You know, we've got people, actual working class people, actual people whose family does this stuff versus Justin Brannon, who's the city council person leading this, right? So Justin Brannon is calling anyone that doesn't support this an Ayn Rand bro, right? And then it's like, no one is saying we don't need regulation. We just want reasonable regulation, right? It's what works. And this clearly doesn't work. But you talk to anyone who has the actual experience with councilmen like Justin Brannon, who spent their career in politics, would never, ever actually know that substance. They would never go talk to people who know that, right? It requires no skill at all, right? You go talk to the actual workers, the fights on Twitter, right? There are only 1,000 master plumbers in New York, right? So either this is just a handout to master plumbers in New York who are now going to get to charge exorbitant fees, or we're just going to have no gas stoves in New York, right? Because everyone's going to be waiting for their gas stove to come. It is a really funny thing. I mean, hopefully this doesn't pass and become a thing because no other major city in the world does it. And you just can't, we're not falling for it. I mean, we're not falling for this language of, you don't care if people die. Of course we care if people die. That is just not true that people are going to die from this. You can't lie and say that and continue this stuff, right? This dumb councilman doesn't know what a master plumber is clearly, but he can't admit it, so they have to keep going. And we've got, actually, let's go further. You need a PhD.
Oh my God.
So
I'm
this
a
is a fun
PhD to
topic.
install a stove. Bail out the universities, Ben. Get PhDs for stove installation. That's what it's going to take to solve. See, when you started this segment, I thought we were going to talk about the esteemed mayoral candidate canceling the gifted and talented program for America's public schools, or for New York's, excuse me, just New York. We're starting with just New York before he takes over the whole friggin' country. New York's public schools. But instead, this might actually be worse. I think this is significantly worse. These people want to create not only a nanny state, they want an infantilized adult population incapable of doing basic. It is a South Park episode, Ben. You don't want actually to be able to do anything for yourself. You got to call a TaskRabbit to hang your photos. You got to call a master plumber to install the gas stove. Let's just make the American adults stupid and dumb and put them in a wheelchair and just stick some TikTok in their brains. And then they can just kind of order what they need through Amazon Prime with a drone that shoots it through their window. These people are assholes. That's my honest take. This is exactly this is the kind of thinking that got us into this situation in the first place, where you have a tiny fraction of the adult population of the United States capable of doing anything with these things right here, Ben, their hands. Other than this, a little typing, we do a tip tap, tip tap. There's more to life than a little tip tap. You got to be able to use these things to find your food, to cook for your family, to build yourself what you need in your home. And you know what? Look, we believe in specialization. This is a free capitalist society. Specialization is a great thing. Over-regulating this, it reminds me a few years ago when somebody tried to ban gas stoves in the US. It was a total uproar. People were not happy about banning gas stoves. When the steam zone goes multi-platinum and we have a little bit more time on our hands, back to the basics, back to using your hands, learning the wrench, getting in the kitchen and figuring it out. That's what life is all about. It's about building things, about doing things. It's about being a functioning member of society. This guy thinks he's better than everybody else because he doesn't know how to install a gas stove. Nobody else can know how to install a gas stove. It's nonsense.
This is a handout to the master plumbers. I'm sure those guys are amazing, but we only have 1,000 in New York City, right? This is like exactly the kind of like backdoor cronyism that's gonna be a handout to 1,000 people, and then no one's gonna have their stoves done. How do you win? Let's say you're like, I want to stop gas stoves. Well, there are a lot of really cool companies doing a lot of cool AI related stuff when it comes to stoves, actually. Go build some really cool stoves, and guess what? People will switch to your things. Tesla didn't win only because it's electric. It won because it was a really good car. You don't win when you just ban something effectively and you do this kind of backdoor banning, a backdoor way to stop us from using gas stoves. Hey, how about we invest in entrepreneurs who are building new electric stoves? And we make this like a positive framing and win on the merits and talk about how, well, when you use an AI-enabled electric stove, which sounds really cool because I screw up cooking all the time, that auto-adjusts to the substance of the thing on the stove, that's a great way to frame a positive view. Go invest in that and go win in the market. And guess what? You'll win on the merits. But don't win on these backdoor ways, if that's what it is. I'm not saying it is or isn't. I just know this policy is important. Call your city council person and make sure it doesn't pass.
All right. Thank you, Ben. We'll close that one out.
All right. Next up on the Steam Zone, we have longtime friend of the platform,
Multimedia, baby.
we're on TikTok, guys. With all the kids.
It's the John Ferry experience here on the Steam Zone. I guess it didn't go too bad the first time. He agreed to come back for some more. John Ferry World is always interesting. John, welcome to the program.
Well, it is what we call in my company Final Monday. So it's a Friday, which means that we work just as much as we did on Monday. I know it's good. We won't talk about the government shutdown. It is what it is. But the silver lining, I think, for everybody is that the number of Teams calls on my calendar has cratered, which is kind of fun. It gets a lot more work done, surprisingly. Maybe we should use that as an index. But no, it's good,
the shutdown silver linings playbook. Ben, what are your silver linings from the shutdown?
Yeah, it's kind of like a nice, good moment to breathe, and hopefully everyone we work with comes back on the back end. So.
Yeah,
all of them? You really want everyone you work with coming back?
We love everybody.
I think the We Belong Here World Peace Concert is in New York this weekend, so that's a good one. Congratulations, $30 million award for ActBot. I know this is something you've been working on for a while. Bring us up to speed. What's been going on behind the scenes on what it is? What is this product versus the 16 other acquisition helper softwares out there? And what did you just get put on contract to do?
Yeah, great question. So it's actually a bunch of contracts. ActBot level set is plain language. It is acquisition, AI, and automation software. Software as a service, government users. You can go to, if you're a CAT card user, you can actually just go to accbot.mil. Pre-award acquisition processes is kind of the most robust element to the platform. So automating all of the things from market research and requirements development through actual source selection and literally every single step in between. And we just apply tools and AI and automation and workflow and systemization to that whole thing. And, you know, kind of the metrics that we're seeing is like 90% reduction in acquisition timelines, the toil consumption, which is pretty sick. Everybody on the industry side, we hate how long it takes to do stuff. From an impact perspective, if you think about it numerically, it is not hard to see that the number of contracting officers and broader procurement professionals in the defense has gone down. Tens of thousands of them left or are leaving soon. Meanwhile, the budget is going up, right? And so if you have a highly manual process and you have a delta between the number of people there are to move the paper and the number of papers that need to be moved, there's going to be a massive delta there. where the paper's just not going to get moved, like the money's not going to get spent. So being able to give those folks who are still left automation capabilities to make those processes much faster, that increases their individual capacity, which reduces burnout, but also increases their net procurement velocity, which is good for everybody in the ecosystem. So we're pretty stoked.
What's an example for someone who hasn't dealt much with the acquisition process about like an automation that's going on, or somehow you're saving time?
So if I am a buyer, I usually have to take a Word document. Sometimes it's on a template. And I have to articulate the statements of work that we all get in our contracts. Someone has to sit down and write all those words and think about what needs to be in every single one of those standardized blocks in that piece of paper. Some of it's boilerplate language that just gets copy pasted. A lot of stuff actually gets copy pasted. And we on the industry side see this all the time. You can look at the statement of work and see where the font size and typeface are different, but it's just because folks are trying to keep up with the demand on the government side. So they end up doing like copy pasta moves, trying to compose these documents. So we auto-gen like 80 to 90% solutions on statement of work, performance work statements, SUs, JNAs, DNS, like all those like documents that have to go into a procurement package. And then traditionally, that procurement package would get put on an email and then emailed to a contracting office, and then emailed to all the approval authorities that have to chop off on that package multiple times in multiple steps in the process. And like that takes months, right? From like the time that I get down, like start from clean sheet of paper, get that into something that is coherent enough for a contracting officer to actually put out on the street, months, right? And now we can do that in like hours to a week tops, depending on how complex it is, because it's all being done on platform. Right. And so like, then when you actually publish that solicitation, usually it's, okay, now I've got all my documents. Now I'm going to load them up into SAM.gov. We're going to load them up into PIE, or I'm going to load them up into Oasis Plus. We're going to load them up into one of the 75 different IDIQ platforms or OTA consortium interface. So we have actually a unified vendor portal, right? So like from a contractor perspective, I can literally go to one portal and have access to an entire menu of contract vehicles that I may or may not be on-ramp to. And from the government side, I can pick a contract vehicle that I want to use, formulate that package, get it approved digitally, and then publish that to that unified portal automatically, right? So it's not a whole bunch of swivel chairing down and up. You save your pennies and you end up saving dollars. It's the same thing with time. You save 15, 20, 30 minutes a day, and it compounds to being hours, weeks, days, months, years of people's time. Once you start multiplying that across the 1,000 users, that multiplies into millions of hours a year that we're saving.
I don't think we can just scroll by. Did you just say the word automagically? I think I heard automagically. I don't know if that was intentional or if that slipped out, but that's going in the dictionary.
That's a DARPA word.
That's a first. That is a Steam Zone first.
So this program sounds awesome. As a vendor to the government, sounds like it would make my life easier. Wouldn't want vendors to miss out on.
Nothing like the Windows.
What about the startups writing the SUs and JNAs and handing them over to the contracting office so you can get your sole source, awards, John? Are you screwing up the thing that definitely doesn't happen in industry, which is that industry writes the thing that then gets put on contract?
There's certain things that I'm not going to say explicitly do or don't happen, but think about the underlying thread of that. Why does that currently happen in practice? It's because the person on the government side is so overwhelmed with the amount of paper they have to move that if there's a shortcut afforded to them, they're probably going to take it, right? Like on the sales side, we know this all day long, right? If you can make the government's life easier, they will thank you for it. And if that means writing the statement of work for them, if they can pick that up and it reads clearly and they can just use that, they're going to do it. Well, if you take away that cause, that premise, if it's actually easier for them to just do it themselves, then yeah, maybe that'll happen less.
Awesome. Well, let's back up then from winning an IDIQ, which is amazing, to where many companies maybe do start and then fail. But you've been writing a lot about SBIR, SBIR land. And well, right now, I don't think it exists because we don't have a reauthorization. But take us through some of your thoughts there.
Yeah, I should post about SBIR on a regular basis. And I'll claim my bias, right? Like I've worked for government, so I have seen SBIRs used on the government side. I've been in the meetings where they're talked about in practice, right? free money, funny money, OPM, right? Other people's money. It's not real money. It's free money because it's not part of a program. So we can just do whatever we want with it, right? There's not that same sort of attachment and equity that you apply to money that you fought and won in a POM and a BEST battle, right? Program objective memorandum, budget estimate submissions, right? Those arcane dollar processes. And so they're not treated the same. So that's one piece, is like the money is just not respected on the government side the same way. That's one issue. The other issue is like we have the value debt and then we come up with these Band-Aid solutions, and credit to Senator Ernst, who's currently like making them stop the process and actually talk and think about it, because there are structural issues. And one of the issues is like all of the R&D money is on the one side of the valley, right? It's over in R&D land, it's in labs, whatever. It's where all the SBIR money is, and it's being executed in SBIR R&D land. The valley of death exists between that SBIR R&D land and program of record land, and the functions are completely different, right? The money that is in POM land, in program land, that program of objective memorandum money in the programs, was programmed 2 years ago, and it's a zero-based construct. So every single dollar in a program was minutely estimated, and I built POMs, right? So minutely estimated down to the dollar for what you're going to need. So if you're going to put some new SBIR thingy in there, you necessarily have to move something out. And the problem I see with all the Band-Aid surgery solutions that are being, banted around, like, oh, we're going to make the award amount bigger on the SBIR side. Oh, we're going to go up to $30 million. Oh, we're going to have AppFit, and we're going to have TACFi, we're going to have StratFi. It's still on the wrong side of the valley. All of the money is still on the R&D side. And so what you try to do is you try to get enough escape velocity coming from the R&D side with these tens of millions of dollars to try and, land over into POM land. But it's still a 2-year gap because there's still programmatic requirements. Well, why don't we just have SBIR sequestered money in every program element line? And maybe not down to every single sub-PE, but like I have a program of record that is an established thing. It exists. Congress flows money like blood through the arteries into the capillaries, through those program elements into those programs. Why isn't there just a fat line of like, hey, whatever your RDT&E resources are, we're going to have 10% added. We as Congress, we're going to add 10% to every, program of record across all of the services. That 10% addition is only for SBIRs. You could only spend it on SBIRs. Well, you now have a bucket of cash over here in the program of record land that it can only be spent on those SBIRs. And so what does that create? That creates a demand signal. The folks over here in program of record land will now have a financial incentive, actually a mandate, because there's no bigger black market of program than sending money back to the Treasury, right? So there's going to be a demand on the program side to spend that cash. And if they can only spend it on SBIR things, they're going to be going out looking for stuff. They're going to take more interest in making sure that the topics that are being created and selected are in the interests of their program. There's no demand side. Like we try to continually push more product side, more capacity side. There's no demand. And that's the problem. That's why the valley exists. It's not a hard solution.
I like a lot of this because ultimately what you're nailing is what SBIR fails to do is connect it to the end state, right? Where you have this program of record land. But I worry that one of the advantages of the SBIR is to explore outside of, and rightfully very, very risky, right? But if I am an E7 in the Air Force that has no connection to a program office, and let's not pretend those program offices are ever going to care about that E7 and has an idea or has something and is meeting, is at a conference and has a good idea, is there any, and maybe the answer is like, hey, we're never going to work for that E7. We're never going to have a good system and sorry. Or is there any way to have like these good ideas that can come from the field have an avenue to get a shot at? We need to be better at publishing like, this is a long shot company. The transition rate will be 1%, and good luck if you want to fund that and let capitalism work. But I just worry that what I love about your idea is that it's tied to these end states, but then we're limiting it to only within the framework of program of record. And are we missing good ideas that can be out in the field in that world?
The two things that I'm going to protest on that are, number one, there is the DARPA, right? DARPA is designed and they get $4 billion a year reliably from Congress to explore pie in the sky stuff. Sweet. And they do SBIRs too. Go do one of their SBIRs, right? They're in pie in the sky land. And you can sell a DARPA program manager on a good idea in a heartbeat. Fine. What are we actually trying to do with SBIR? And actually, what does a company want to do with a SBIR? They want to get into a program of record where there's real money, right? And so the first two kind of policy ideas, number one, create a fat slice of money to catch those programs on the program side. That just creates a landing pad for those capabilities. That needs to happen. The other thing is, if it is pie in the sky, inherently a program office isn't going to care. So we can invest money in these magical things, but if in some way you can't tie that even tangentially or loosely back to some program, whether it's a current program or a future planned strategic program, you can waste the money. It's not going to go anywhere. And so that company, like, okay, good, you got $2 million of runway. I'm sure that helps you, but your time in defense is now dead because there's nowhere to go. And we're not going to keep limping along on SBIR money. Like, that is the problem. The fact that that is an acceptable approach to technology investment and adoption is asinine. It's like throwing VC money at a product that there's no TAM for. No one would do that. So I don't think that it has to be like, here's my structured program of record priorities. But if I'm doing something in C2 communications or cryptocurrency, I should at least be able to go, if we're successful, here's the program of record in the government that this should go to. Like, maybe they don't have a line for it right now, but this would be their job if this became a real thing.
Yeah.
And so if I'm the E7 and I am coming up with a good idea, we should make it easier for that E7 to say, that's really cool. I know how I could use it. Whose job is it to give me those things? Oh, it's this person's job. Okay, well, I'm just going to tie my topic to that program. It doesn't have to be hard. And honestly, one of the things that I think is important also is topic selection for SBIR programs. Where is it done right now? It's done at multiple echelons, going up a filtered chain of command up to whatever SBIR management system there is at the top, right? So AFWorks, SpaceWorks, Army SBIR, right? There's a filtration process as these things percolate up. That's the wrong way to do it, because the further you go up in the approval process, the further you get from the point of need and the most active understanding of the relevance of a capability, right? By the time you get up to the top, before the final adjudication and shipping into the OSD BAA, the people up there have no contact or connection to the actual problems they're solving. And it's no shade on them. Like, this is just the system as it's set up. So like, why aren't we crowdsourcing the topic approval? Why isn't there a voting system? So if that E7 really wants this new magical widget, why doesn't he go to the motor pool and say, hey guys, y'all need to go to whatever, SBIR.mil and upvote my thing.
Joke about SBIR mills.
It would change the dynamics.
I think the DoD needs to do a better job of being that front door, because I think you do have a lot of excited engineering talent that want to go do something. And then they see the front door as SBIR because that's what the DoD is advertising. And they don't even know that the DoD should be very open about the program of record stuff, but instead that's a black box. So I think the DoD needs to change how it's advertising. It should be very open about this is the program of record and we do X. And it's very clear how you would or wouldn't fit into that. And then give very firm, I think the DoD needs to do a better job of saying no to stuff. Like, no, we're not interested in this. Thank you. Here's some other things. Here are our priorities.
100%.
So let me hop in here for a second. This conversation has been going on since the beginning of time, at least for the last 10 years.
We don't have to worry, though.
I am largely uninterested in the SBIR conversation because I don't think people are honest about one thing, and that is the objective of the SBIR program. So let's talk about what this is. This is a small business administration pool of funding. Yes, it's administered by the DoD. Yes, it's administered by DARPA. Yes, I think even the Department of State has a SBIR program. It's a small business administration program, which means it's effectively a jobs program. It is one of those things that is masquerading inside the federal government as this, when in reality it is this. The goal is to quote unquote support small businesses. When it became big in defense again was right around 2018, 2019, really thanks to the Air Force and AFWorks and all these innovation organizations that sprung up that were in response to one fundamental thing, which is that, hey, our defense industrial base has shrunk. In short, there's fewer companies providing the same amount of capability to the enterprise. We should broaden that, right? And you can read 80,000 articles about the Last Supper, the first breakfast, blah, blah, blah. That's not my area of expertise. Others will tell you about it. But so what was the goal? The goal was just to get more people thinking about selling to the federal market. That was the goal. What's the most popular SBIR topic every year, John?
SBIR open topic?
Open topic, which means it's actually affiliated with no one. It's not an E7's idea. It's not DARPA's idea. It's not a program office's idea. It's just an opportunity for a company that's had 2 conversations with a junior dude or a program office or whatever who says they don't have money for it. It's an opportunity for them to get a signed piece of paper and then play their, scratch off their lottery ticket and see what happens. So the impetus for SBIR expansion inside DoD was just to get more companies involved. Now you also have this other group of people, the venture capital community. What's their interest in all of this? They want to show traction. They want to pump up their next round. They want their companies to have a fighting chance. John, I think one of the things that you alluded to is that a lot of these things, TACFI, STRATFI, it's just about keeping these companies alive for a little bit longer, giving them another chance, somebody else beyond venture money propping them up, giving them a little bit more time for people to play with it, with the idea being that with more time, they can navigate that crazy process and then hopefully land on the other side of the aisle. Who else is interested in SBIR? Lockheed Martin, Booz Allen Hamilton, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman. Why do they care? They don't have to do R&D. They can watch somebody else do R&D. They're sitting in all the program offices. They got people on the inside. When this stuff comes through, who gets first look at it? The primes who are already on contract. So all of this to say, I think your solution's a very interesting solution. What you have here is a lack of clarity around what are we trying to achieve with this program, and then what are the incentives of every participant in that system. You could really quickly see if you put the money in the program offices, yep, it's got a landing component, but what's going to happen? All of a sudden, you're going to start seeing the buddies of the Lockheed Martin program managers playing for SBIR. Those SBIR mills are going to become really interesting because they'll just hand over the technology to the primes. It would work, but you will also see it will work at some things and be less great at others. It's kind of a change in incentives. So my honest take, and sorry for this is my rant here, and then I promise I'm not going to talk about SBIR for weeks. The reality of this program is it does some things very well, which is it gives a lot of people the ability to say that they're working with the federal government. What it does not do well is technology transfer or transition to program of record. Fundamentally, that is a relationship thing that takes time, and it takes an understanding of a system. Of all of the people who show up to the defense tech community or national security ecosystem, there is a very small group of people who actually know how to do that. I know because I've been hunting them for 2 years to try to get them to come on the Crossing the Valley podcast. There's really not that many people who have taken something from prototype to production at a scale that impacts the mission. I would bet my bottom dollar that when the federal government is reopened, the SBIR program is not going away. There are too many people who have a vested interest in keeping this gravy train running. The exact form and function it takes is likely a matter of who's got the right lobbyist in the right place at the right time. That's my moment of cynicism. Thank you, America.
I think what you talked about, the part, 2 things. Number one, Halmar, question number 1 is, what problem are you trying to solve? And I think you articulated it well, right? Like, is this just a white collar corporate jobs program? If that's the case, to Ben's point, just be honest about it. Let's let's stop baffling. Let's actually align narrative with reality and say look, you gotta, and at least VC does this well. The power law is 97% of you will fail, but the 3 who succeed have a pretty good life ahead of them, probably, maybe, if they keep their cap table clean. Why isn't that the same narrative here? Hey, let's just be honest. You got a 2.5% chance of this working. Otherwise, you guys are going to die in the valley. That's just the way it is. And we're good with that, actually, because it worked for us. God bless and Godspeed, right? But that's not what happens. It's, Department of War, we need to reinvigorate, reindustrialize. We need more, we need to rebuild the national industrial bit. No, actually, we're not actually interested in that. We just want to make sure that people aren't griping to Congress that they're not getting DoD dollars.
Good, because people will still do hard shit, right? People go sign up for hard things in the military all the time and I'm likely going to fail. And then you get really good talent going through. The problem is when you have the dissonance where people are sold, you're going to be successful in selling to the DoD. It's going to be easy. You're going to have the easy button here. Do a little bit of work, and then they have the dissonance, and then they're turned off, and they say, fuck this, I'm done with this industry. And that is actually worse for America, because now you have people that I tried, and I met entrepreneurs that are doing really, really cool companies that are successful in the commercial space who are like, I tried the DoD, that sucked, I'm out, I won't even consider it now.
And I'm going to tell my buddies not to do it either.
Right, and then we're all missing out. Instead, if they were told up front, this is a lotto ticket, good luck, try it, they might have had a different attitude and say, oh, it didn't work out.
I won't be jaded.
Yeah.
Well, good news. If they don't like the DoD, we got something new for them. DOW's here, baby. It's a rebrand. We're refreshed. We're back at it. All right, we got to close this one out because even the 100 people who care about SBIR, I think we put them to sleep over the last 20 minutes. So let's go ahead and put SBIR on a shelf. We're not talking about it for a while. Good luck. We'll see what happens. Let's move on. We'll hit one more before we let John get on with running his business and the $30 million that he's got to put somewhere in Barbados. Then what do we got next?
John, you tagged us in an interesting post where you were talking about the DoD as a toxic relationship. I don't know if you have any thoughts there. Would love to hear your analogy about dating in the DoD.
Yeah, it's funny. That post was in response to a post from a DoD service organization. I won't name names, but they know who they are. They made a comparison to a relationship. It was like a hot girl checklist, to be crass about it, but it was like, you know, we broke up with you because you didn't learn our requirements and you didn't understand our compliance and you didn't this and you didn't that and you didn't that. And so we broke up with you. I looked at it and they did it first. I just rebutted. It sounded like a toxic relationship. I coined the term this morning. It sounds like a chatitude, right? And it interestingly dovetails with a lot of in the sort of social interest space, the difficulty of the dating dynamics and the whole male-female interaction in the current generation. I have teenage kids, so I pay attention to this. The amount of women that are searching for male partners and are not finding those, and there's a lot of dynamics there, but part of it is when you come into a relationship with a list of red flags and a list of requirements and you are coming in looking for a man in finance, you know, trust fund 6'5", blue eyes, and that's your requirement coming in, and then you look down your nose at everybody who is 5'5" or doesn't have a trust fund, like it is 100% the same dynamic in the current relationship ecosystem as it is in DoD, where one side of the relationship looks down their nose, and I literally have heard government folks say this, it's like, well, you know, industry doesn't deserve a response to this. They don't deserve to have their questions answered. If they want to work with us, they have to work with us our way. They need to learn about us. It's not our job to teach them. Like, okay, so you just want to swipe through the Tinder to find the guys with square jaws, and then when they show up, they have to treat you like this, you know, powder puff princess, or else you're going to ghost them. It's not, but like, in the problem, this goes back to the cognitive dissonance of the narrative, is like, government wants relationships, government wants this, but the problem is that they've had this, you know, hot girl Chad mentality. It's the same thing on either side of the gender spectrum of like, well, if I'm really attractive and the mates are coming to me, then I get to be choosy and they have to do what I want. And if they don't, then I'm not going to give them the time. And you know what ends up with that is you have a bunch of Chads and a bunch of hot girls who have bidirectionally toxic relationships, right? So like the hot girl who wants the mate to act a particular way, well, the person who shows up who is 6'5", has a trust fund, blue eyes, is accustomed to being treated a certain way. And so then they wonder why the primes are treating them like trash, right? And that just creates a toxic reinforcement cycle where they don't trust, they don't build actual conducive bonded relationships, and they treat everybody that comes towards them with this meet my checklist, don't have any red flags attitude. And so everyone else in the mating pool is alienated and jaded, and they become, you know, GovCon incels.
Yeah, we should flash up the data because I think it's probably true, which is like signal rates in the United States of America are skyrocketing at all times high. People are unhappy, and it's like, does that, I think, rightly apply to the defense industrial base? It's not about compromising, right? It's not about settling for something less. In a really good relationship, You have give and take. You're honest with each other. You're constantly dialoguing. You are pointing out flaws with each other. Hey, like, I don't like your product because of X, or I don't like the way you solve that problem, or and then that allows the person to improve, if not just for you and your relationship, then for the next relationship. And when we talk about like an ecosystem like is like these dynamic repeated interactions, right? It's not just one game, right? It's not the zero-sum one game. It's like, well, you're not the right fit for me at this program, at this PO, but you know what? Let me help you get better, because some other person in the ecosystem will benefit if I give you a little bit of feedback. And that's the same thing in relationships.
It needs to be bi-directional.
America, there's crisis here, and then we're also going to solve the defense industrial base.
I don't know
It's just
jack
people,
shit
man.
about relationships. I'm out on this. John, let's hit. We said we'd let you go. You're launching a movement. What are people signing up for? Acceleration movement. What's going on? And we'll let you go.
Yeah, if everyone's familiar with the effective acceleration movement, that was kind of a marketing to recent thing. But it was like, we're going to go all in. Like, we as a cultural movement are going to go all in on AI and automation in the business sphere. AI and automation enthusiasts and optimists, right? It's kind of the counterbalance to the sort of AI doomer mentality. The same thing needs to happen in acquisition, right? Like, good to the SecDef for notionally blowing up the JSIDS process. That's a step in the right direction. At the end of the day, if we do not go, and this is a little bit self-serving, sure, there is a massive and growing delta between capacity and demand. And the only way to close that gap, because we're not going to be able to do it with fresh bodies in the near term or the long term, we need to adopt this stuff. And from acquisition perspective, this is something that impacts literally everybody, the warfighters, the industry. Everyone gets impacted by this one facet of the ecosystem, which is acquisition. If the money doesn't move, everybody lose. So if we can start adopting acquisition, automation, and AI, and really get behind that and not be all doomer about, protests and GAO, and is there bias in the models? Like, look, guys, there's bias everywhere. People are flawed. The current system isn't working.
Thanks for joining us. This was fun. Next time we'll solve the next world.
World hunger.
John, always a pleasure. All righty. Joining us from overseas, it is time for another job of the week. Austin, what
Noah, how
are
we
we
doing?
hiring for today?
So we're hiring a marketing manager today. Blue Water is almost entirely engineers. I think I'm one of two people who's not an engineer at Blue Water right now, but I'm so excited to bring this person in. It's really going to be a really important part of how we build our brand.
So the VCs must be concerned. We're adding non-engineering headcount. We're growing G&A. We're on the wrong side of the cap of the balance sheet. But we know this is the few and the proud at Blue Water. It's got to be important. Why are you bringing on this person, right? You're the chief marketing officer, dude. You're putting out the Substacks. You got a lot of stuff going on. Why hire somebody else for this role right now?
Yeah, we are really lucky because we're building something really cool. There are a lot of companies building cool stuff. We happen to be building the largest robot in the world. We're currently operating the second largest autonomous vehicle in the Western Hemisphere. The only one's bigger is the SpaceX one that catches their rockets. So we keep running into, every week, dope visuals, dope stories, and really impactful things that we're doing that we need to capture better and share better. That's why we're hiring this person, because I'm out of bandwidth to do that all the time. And my partner in crime, Beth, who's kind of side saddle marketing right now, 50-50 split on who's doing, she's out of time to do that as well. We need someone who's laser focused on this one problem. I'm in Europe right now, working with a supplier and some of our engineers for the week from a European country. We just announced our shipyard is in Louisiana. We've got some amazing B-roll down there, and then we're testing on the water every day in New England. There's a lot of really cool stuff to capture and share with our customers, our investors, and make sure that our story is being told.
We love the commitment to build publicly. This is storytelling. It's cool stuff that you guys are doing. What do you anticipate this person's day-to-day, Austin? Is this somebody who's going to be running paid marketing campaigns? Are they going to be running a podcast? Are they going to be out filming? How do you expect this person to be spending their time?
Every single day is going to be different. We're working on a podcast. We're working on a lot of visual content. We have a strong social presence, which is mainly me kind of spamming people, and we'll be way better when we have someone, who knows what they're doing. It's going to be different every single day. We're also a strong writing culture. So I think that's an important thing for this audience on a recruiting network to be aware of. I love writing. I have a blog that's kind of my personal blog. It's my personal blog, but it's related to what we're doing at work. My co-founder, Rylan, was at Amazon for a few years. So he got to experience the famous Jeff Bezos 4-page memos. We don't do that, but it's an example of the strong writing culture internally. That internal focus, I think, spreads to how we think and communicate with each other and then with the external audiences.
This is becoming increasingly cool right now. Like even you're starting to see
Right.
founders write instead of just pitch decks, like they're writing kind of almost like deal memos or investment memos.
Or Series B.
The manifesto's hot right now. People like a manifesto, especially the reindustrialized guys, big manifesto guys. We like to see it. So maybe sketch out like who's the dream person for this role? Maybe it's not, you don't have to give us their age, height, and weight, but maybe what are the experiences they've had and what gets them excited in the morning?
So we're not at the NFL Combine here, right? We don't need those stats, but I think there are two things that jump out to me that are going to be really important for this person. One is they need to be a very strong visual storyteller, and that comes from addressing a gap and a weakness that we have right now. I'm colorblind. I'm like semi-visually impaired, so I'm like not at all strong there. And we definitely just like need to become really good there. And right now we're like batting average or below average, right? And then the other thing that they're going to need, and a lot of people with probably a visual marketing background won't necessarily have this other thing. That's why it's a really interesting role to try to hire for, is they need to understand our audiences pretty well. Not really well already, right? Like I'm obsessed with our customers, our investors, and our stakeholders. I know them really well now, but like they don't need to already know all about them, but they need to have some understanding of the Navy and the culture and what that audience wants and feels and thinks about every day. And the same thing for the investors, other people we're recruiting, right, to grow our team. Those types of stakeholders need to have some solid understanding of some of those audiences. It's a very unique set of stakeholders that we're speaking to. And being able to tell an effective story to those audiences is really like, when you're telling a story, it's not about the speaker, it's about the audience, right?
So that's who you're looking for. We'll be working with you. We'll be working with your colleague, Beth. Every day is going to be a little bit different. What would you love to see from someone to stand out in the application process?
Yeah, I think I'll say three things. The first two we already talked about, like, experience-wise, a blend of like strong visual storytelling experience and some experience understanding key stakeholders. So like there's someone who's done like dope visual stuff from defense tech, like on the market side. That's probably a pretty rare combination. That'd be a big deal. The third thing I'd say would be culturally to fit with us, like some level of leaning in and research and attention to what makes us unique and what we're actually trying to do and talk about and sell. People who go and do their due diligence as recruits, I think really stand out to me, because you can tell when you meet them that this isn't just interview number 25, that they've gone and figured out why this is a good fit for them. And then it suddenly becomes obvious to you that it is a good fit for them because they figured it out already, telling you what they figured out. And you're like, okay, I already know exactly what they would do here. That's sweet. It's a really good feeling.
It's de-risking and demystifying kind of who they are and what the process. Do you have a
For
story?
both sides.
Amazing. Make it an easy decision. For anybody else, any closing words? So if you're interested in maritime autonomy, if you're interested in manufacturing and robotics and shipbuilding, Blue Water is a compelling newcomer with sizable assets at their disposal and a pretty cool team. Make your closing pitch, Austin, to anybody thinking about their next move.
My only close is that I can't wait to meet the people who apply for this, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the resumes that come in.
All right. Austin, if people want to apply, we'll drop the link in the show notes, but where should they go?
blw.ai, right on our website.
All right. Good luck to you, Austin and Blue Water, and good luck to you, future marketing managers.
All right, for my Steam this week, Noah, next week we'll do our deep dive on the government shutdown. I know you're bringing some Treasury experts on. We're going to get deep into T-bills. But beyond that, I think more importantly is I want to give a shout out, a Steam up, or whatever we call it these days, to Navy Federal and USAA, to credit unions or banks, whatever you want to call them. I'm not an expert on banking, that are just taking care of the troops while the government shut down. So they are continuing to give interest-free loans out to the troops so that you can pay your bills, so that people aren't going hungry. It can be really tough out there, especially for our junior Marines, junior airmen, sailors, etc., where we know they don't get paid what they're worth. And so every paycheck matters. These guys paying the troops shows that they're a real partner, a real, someone who cares. They could easily charge an interest rate. They could easily just not offer this, and they'd probably be fine and could really rely on, hey, sorry, there's a government shutdown. But they are, I think, showing their credits when they do that. So we're not going to figure out the government shutdown this week. I said next week we'll figure it out. But until then, I'm glad that USA and Navy Fed are out there.
All right. My steam this week is I'm steaming down, baby. We're blowing somebody up. And that is, I'm steaming the anger industrial complex, Ben. I made the mistake. I came home. It was a Friday night. It was late. I went on a little Twitter. Big mistake. And Twitter is great. You get some breaking news on X sometimes when an event is unfolding. But then there's an entire class of human that just exists to keep you angry and emotional all the time. And I think there's it's not just politics. It's just about anything in the world. There are people who are just trying. They get their jollies. They get their kicks by keeping you angry. And so we're going to practice namaste on the Steam Zone, Ben. Ryan Holiday, we're doing the stoicism. We are stoics here on the Steam Zone. We're trying something this week. Steam Zone challenge to everybody at home. When someone says something and your first feeling is anger or emotion, just laugh in their face. Laugh in their face, because you know what they're doing, Ben. They're trying to get you all steamed up. They want you to react, but we don't do it. We let the release valve, we pull the ripcord, we let it steam right off, and we laugh in their faces, because we are not buying the anger industrial complex anymore, Ben. We are here to namaste our way to eudaimonia, human flourishing. That's what it's all about on the Steam Zone, and that's what we hope for you, our dear listeners. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.
Stay off Twitter, stay off Instagram. Be happy.